to the series where I'm trying to explain Vampire the Masquerade clans, which are kind of similar to classes. And this time we're gonna be talking about a cult. And not like a cult, but a cult. Because it would be very hard to explain the ministry in any other way than to call them a cult. Because a cult just happens to be what they are. It was honestly a really odd choice for the makers of the game to choose that they're a clan, because normally clans will have some sort of politics and some sort of one unique thing that unite them all, and these ones are just a giant religious cult. Because it would be very hard for me to explain what the ministry, or how they were formerly known, followers of Set are, I will actually read you a bit from their Wikipedia page, the culture section, because I think that the culture section sums up what they are as a clan really well. So the mission of the followers of Set can be stated in a single word: corruption. They seek to subvert and destroy whatever is good, noble, safe, or beautiful within both vampire and mortal society. They are plotters without peer, with an unequaled genius for misdirection and temptation. Their favorite weapons include drugs, sex, money, power, and vice in all its aspects. But for the most part, the followers of Set, this corruption is just a means to an end. They believe in a radical split between the divine eternal soul and the corrupt transitory world and body. The laws of their faith say that deep down the soul knows it does not belong in a prison of matter. Anything that distracts the soul from this knowledge and ties it to the world must be a trap. And if the world is a prison, then the gods must be its jailers. To achieve liberation, a soul must shed all false doctrines, cravings, and habitats that bind it and blind it. Such self-awareness cannot come from mere argument or faith. Only direct experience of the most extreme sort can break the hold of the gods over the soul and allow liberation. Through these experiences, the Setites believe they can achieve true divine power over the world and liberate themselves from very physical and spiritual constraint, as they already have taken the first steps out of the prison when they have received the being turned into a vampire. It took Setites some time to accept that they and other vampires are indeed related, if not the same species, and some elders are still not wholly convinced. Vampires of other clans were originally seen as pawns of other Egyptian gods arranged against Set, or the work of evil spirits from the underworld who shared nothing with them but the fact that they too existed in both the material world and the afterlife. Befitting a clan that holds truth as a tool of false gods, multiple explanations for their state were accepted. During the Dark Ages, common doctrine was that their their essence, has already descended to Duat, but that their bodies, through the waters of death, were still inhabited by their personality and life essence. Other systems, mainly used in Aku, prescribed a detailed system centered around the ninefold soul, with the Kat as the body, the Ba as one component of blood, the Ab as humanity, the Kabit as the beast, and the Sekhem as another part of the blood, along with the other Ka, the astral self, Ren, the true name, Ku, the aura, and Sahu, the indestructible part of the soul, rumored by some Setites to later serve Set as Sabao. If you're confused, don't worry, so am I. I tried reading as much as possible about the ministry / followers of Set, and all I'm getting is that it is one big religious cult that also happens to be transmitted to vampire blood. But anyone that gets chosen to become a vampire has to serve the cult in advance. So it's cultists turning other cultists into vampires, like one big happy vampire cult. Now, mind you, they also happen to accept other clans into the cult, and they can still call themselves followers of Set. So if a Ventru wants to get converted into following Set, that's perfectly fine with the ministry, otherwise known as followers of Set. So even though the Ventru would still keep the powers and the weaknesses to do with being a Ventru, they would also teach him the disciplines to do with being a follower of Set, and would see him as a fully fledged member. Now, mind you, they're like, everything that's worldly is like super impure, but majority of their actions is dealing in just that, because they're like, you're gonna see that it's super impure and like super bad and not what your soul wants through an overindulgence. So followers of Set are great at providing you with power, money, drugs, parties. They love to party, and anything else that you might want in your life in a large amount, in an attempt for you to see that that is not actually what you want out of life. And they're fine with lying, they're completely fine with backstabbing, they're completely fine with being very political, and their one goal is not only to disrupt and corrupt the harmony of everything that is, because that's what they see Set standing for, but also to get more people into their cult, because in the end, they are a cultist. I'm gonna read a tiny excerpt of the history of followers of Set, because once again, this is something that's like really hard for me to wrap my head around, because my eyes just started glazing over, because it is written like legitimately somebody's like induction into a cult. Like, I feel like some writer was trying to like create a believable cult, and therefore they're using a lot of words that would be only exclusive to said cult. And then they're like, that is a clan, you know, these cultists, they make up a clan, here you go. But well, other clans are a lot easier to understand because you only really need basics to play them. This is legitimately like trying to induct yourself into a specific cult in order to figure out how to play a cultist. A lot of their shit just in history revolved around Egypt, around gods in Egypt. And then at some point, they were like, it's very hard for us to hold our territories, so we need broader support. So while historically they were an independent clan, with majority of them just kind of being in Egypt, and then like some offshoots spreading around the world, and them not even like liking some of the offshoots and like banning them from ever showing up in Egypt. Now, in version 5 of the game, version 20 and version 5 of the game are the versions that are the most played of the tabletop, with version 5 being the newest instead of being independent, they are now aligned with the Anarch faction, which are known as the Rebels. Yay! Plus, they're kind of watching the current modern era as like the final knights. To them, the apocalypse is just like around the corner, and that's when Set will come back to either devour or redeem the world. It's very culty, okay? If I was to read the overview, it says Orthodox Setite belief that dictates that Set will one day return to rule or consume the world. And devout Setites prepare the way for his resurrection. So, like, this whole page just so reads like one giant cult. And it's so hard for me to concentrate on it because my eyes just kind of going, It would be very hard to actually, like, induct me into a cult. I have a personal spirituality. And I'm not that easily swayed or influenced by other people's opinions, but because I run in spirituality space, I'm so used to seeing cults. So when I have to read like personal beliefs of a specific cult in game, my eyes begun to glaze over and my brain checks out as if I am reading the brochure with like the 10,000th cult available that was recently created by like some guy that wants to give you their personal opinion and personal take on the spirituality. So anyway, I'm just gonna give you the early history and it's gonna illustrate like the kind of words that they're using and why it's so hard for me to understand Setites outside of the basics. My cat also disagrees with Setites being a thing, but there's a vacuum going right outside my room, so I don't want to let him out because he's gonna freak out. In the first nights, the clan was fairly centered around its antediluvian, and not surprisingly, Egypt. Antediluvian means a vampire that has existed before the flood, and normally when antediluvian is mentioned, they mean a really old vampire that has started this particular clan. Or any particular clan. Many different tales are told about his divinity and how he was cursed by Ra in his struggle against his rival Osiris, whom he eventually managed to kill, and his abandonment by his disciples and fellow antediluvians. In the matter of the Path of Typhon, so the game runs off humanity normally, and if your vampire does very inhumane acts, and a lot of them, they can tank their humanity, and if they lose all of it, then there's no more of your own vampire left. It's only the beast that controls it, and you can no longer have your character, so that is a game over. If your vampire is supposed to do a lot of very inhumane acts, you would replace humanity when it drops low with a path, which is like a list of vampire convictions that they have, that the pinky swear promise not to break, and then that path works like your new moral compass and like your new version of humanity. So like maybe stealing and murder will no longer be a problem to your vampire, but like saving puppies will. It entirely depends on your path. And paths are normally not something that version 5 of the game deals with all that much, and it's more of like the more inhumane faction, the Sabbat, that used to deal with paths inside version 20. The majority of people playing vampires that are based off humanity. But that's me trying to explain to you what Path of Typhon means in this account, like what is a path. All these accounts are taken for true because limitation to just one version is just another sign of the influence of Ra and Osiris in this world. It can be said that Set's Get had a fairly great influence on Egypt as a whole during the days of pharaonic Egypt, although his efforts were always undermined by the Assyrian League under the leadership of his eternal enemy Horus. Set himself guided his clan from his great temple in Anbas, and sometimes got involved personally with the dethroning pharaohs who were too entrenched by Maat. And if you're gonna click into Maat, Maat, sometimes spelled as M-A-A-T, is the cosmic principle of virtue, justice, and balance that perpetuates the world. And the schemes of the eons. And if we click into eons, what is eon? Eon is a Gnostic term which the followers of Set used to refer to false gods, that is, all gods other than Set. Cult. In this way, the followers of Set established their hold on the lands of Egypt several times. First during the reign of the Hyksos, in an alliance with La Sombra, and La Sombra is another vampire clan that I will have to speak about at some point. Then during the 19th dynasty under Ramses, and during the Hellenistic age under Alexander the Great. During the reign of Rome, the Settites flourished in countless cults among the children of Seth and of Cain, promising ancient secrets and shaping the mindset of the cultists to resist the snares of Maat, which we have already looked into, means virtues, right? All those efforts were delivered a serious blow when Seth himself disappeared at the alleged years of Christ's crucifixion, by the way. After the departure of the founder, earthquakes shattered Egypt and many of the old temples sunk and became lost, often taking many of the slumbering Methuselahs. And if we click into Methuselah, Methuselah is a vampire of the 4th and 5th generations who has lived for 1,000 years or more, thank you, of the clan with them. However, Thorheb and the remaining Hierophants, I know what Hierophant is when it comes to tarot, but what is Hierophant in Vampire the Masquerade universe? The Hierophant or Eternal are the leaders of the followers of Set in the absence of their founder. Well, that's nice. Took the reins of the clan, ruling the progeny of Set in his absence. Do you see how, like, many terms this, like, little clan has that's just, like, unique to them? The Hierophants, Maat, Eons. And you're like, okay, my brain's exploding now. Why did you have to make a cult for a clan? But anyway, that's a cult. Whoa! So, in order to be indicted or embraced into this cult, like to become a vampire of this cult, you would normally be serving the cult as immortal, making majority of your backgrounds like really boring. It doesn't matter where you come from, you could be like the richest twat or like the poorest and most rejected person. The whole idea is that before you became a vampire of this cult, you kind of needed to be brainwashed by this cult. Now, there is some leeway with your belief system because outside of like this like little description as to what the ministry does and what the followers of Set do, because there isn't like any set order for what you absolutely need to believe in, every single like little temple of theirs tend to have like beliefs that are slightly more of their own, and they have like a lot of split off factions. I'm not gonna be talking about them in this video because there is a lot of them and it's still a cult. Like, the only thing that my brain could think of throughout this whole thing was a cult, a cult, a cult. And no surprise, I have never played a character from the ministry. And I suppose if everyone plays the ministry, it might be okay, because now it's just cultists together. But otherwise, you have like this one outsider cultist inside a party with a whole bunch of non-cultists that is also preaching a lot of purity while doing anything but. And actually, they kind of even like address the hypocrisy of this because they're like, oh, we're committing all the sins so that you don't have to. It's fine. We understand what this is. Like, we can do a lot of it. We're like gonna keep you pure of mind and to understand that you are not your body and that all of the things that you desire in this life won't actually bring happiness to your soul, but also drugs! Which honestly probably is not too far off real cults. Like, how many cult leaders are just like sniffing lines of some nice white, let's call it flower in general? Probably a lot, and that's probably not what they preach. Now, one thing that is kind of cool about followers of Set is their version 20 abilities, because they would get invisibility, obfuscate, they would get presence, which is, look at me, I am so cool. It's like your ability to glow and attract everyone's attention to, and everyone will think that you're awesome. But more importantly, they had a unique ability called Serpentitis, because as you can imply from the image, they're very much tied to snakes. Originally, Set had like nothing to do with snakes, but then like kind of Christianity came and they like projected this image of an evil snake, and all of the younger ministry members just kind of grabbed it and ran with it. Like, they didn't mind. So you can do things like immobilize someone with your gaze, or grow an extended tongue that serves as a weapon, transform into a large venomous snake. Also, for some reason, the members of this cult are not affected by serpent venom. Like, anything that's to do with like snake poisons, they're entirely immune. So they also have that. There are a lot of snake things. Loads of snake things. You can just walk around covered in snakes. But in order to make things simpler, version 5 of the game has simplified a lot of abilities, and that's just not as fun. So they have Obfuscate in V5, which is still invisibility. They have Presence, which is still the look at me ability. But they also now have Protein instead of Serpentitis. And Protein is your ability to like transform into animals or make part of your body take animal shapes. If I was to read official abilities, it's like Eyes of the Beast, see in the dark, turn one's hands into dangerous claws, melt into the earth, transform into 2 types of animals, turn yourself into a mist, and that's about it. So instead of being also cool and unique and themed after snake, you can just select the snake as one of the animal types that you can transform in if you're low enough on the whole protein skill tree, because that's not just like what 1 dot in protein does. That's like, you need to get to like 3 dots, I think, in order to transform into an animal, and that's like a pretty costly ability. So instead of everything being snake themed, you have to spend quite a lot of experience to roleplay a snake, which is just really not as fun, especially when that's like totally your jam. So that's the fun bits of the cult. Because I'm not entirely like, they might be a clan, but I'm just gonna continue calling them a cult. A cult, not a cult. So now every vampire group, and in this case followers of Set, they all have a weakness. The classic weakness of followers of Set is that they're extremely susceptible to sunlight, take double damage, and have great difficulty acting while under bright light, spotlights, strobes, etc. So if you want to keep your follower of Set from acting, just take out a flashlight and shine it directly at them. They're somehow like really light phobic. In the 5th edition, instead, when exposed to direct illumination, whether natural or artificial, members of the clan recoil. Ministers receive a penalty equal to their bane severity to all dice pools when subjected to bright light directed straight at them. They also take extra damage from sunlight, so that's still there. But once again, you want them cultists away from you. Just carry a bloody flashlight and shine at them directly. They're not gonna like that. They will hate it. They will really hate it. Now, version 5 has compulsions, which is kind of what happens when you botch a roll inside the game. So it doesn't matter what you're rolling for. If you botch it, every clan has like this thing that they have to then go and do or not do or just take a penalty to. So for followers of Set, now known as the Ministry, they rebranded, by the way, because people didn't like followers of Set, and they're like, oh shit! In the modern nights, we kind of need friends because we're being besieged by everybody, and we also believe that Set is near, so we kind of need to amass power. Besides joining the Anarch faction, they also rebranded, hence why they're called the Ministry now and not followers of Set. They also now kind of believe that all of them are part of Set instead of like Set being this like one separate thing. So they're acting on behalf of Set. They're not just like following Set. I don't know if the distinction. Either way, cult stuff, big cult stuff, like red flags, all definitely a cult. Back to compulsions. Transgression. Set teaches that everyone's mind and spirit are bound by invisible chains of their own making. Their blood chafes at those bindings, and the minister suffers a burning need to break them. The vampire receives a 2 dice penalty to all dice pools not relating to enticing someone, including themselves, to break a chronicle tenet, which is something that you set out with the group. Like in-house rules and personal rules, effectively, or personal conviction, definitely personal rules, causing at least one stain and ending this compulsion. Stains are the things that it's a thing that you're gonna feel guilty about and roll at the end of the session, like I broke house rules or I broke personal rules. So now I get a stain, and the more stains I have, the harder the roll. The less stains I have, the easier the roll. So at the end of the session, you roll like how guilty you're feeling about all of that, and if you fail that roll, you get to remove a humanity point. Well, if you succeed that roll, then all stains are gone and you preserve your humanity. That's how the whole stain system works. It's not really in previous games. Previous games, if you did something heinous, the storyteller would just be like, right, you're losing humanity there and then. In here, it's more like you have some grace period and a roll to pass on whether or not you're losing humanity, so it's kind of harder to lose humanity, but at the same time, at version 20, you can buy humanity back directly. So if you just have a lot of experience points and you're like, whoopsie daisy, my humanity fell low. Let me just spend some experience points and wow, I feel so human again. Like you just wake up feeling a lot more human. Well, in version 5, you can't really do that, so that humanity loss is a lot more permanent. Probably that's why they added the whole stain system. Anyway, complicated mumbo jumbo. That was the Ministry. That rather was my best ability to sum up the Ministry for you. Cult. I can't sum them up in any better way. I would find playing them to be very hard because your whole point is to corrupt literally everyone else. So you're not gonna play very well with any kind of other characters necessarily, unless they're also from your cult. And your point would also be to recruit people into your cult. And if you can recruit vampires, all the better. And also, you really like it's a thing that would be hard for me to roleplay, but I don't know, maybe some of you have been ministry players, or maybe some of you have an idea as to how you would roleplay a person like that, or would be interested in role-playing a person like that. I would love to hear that in the comment section down below. If you want to read the full history of the ministry and everything that they have gone up to, without me just saying that my eyes glazed over, because my eyes did glaze over, then please head to the Wikipedia page for the clan. This is my way of connecting to the game that I love playing and that I have 2 sessions off a week. I'm not necessarily the best at this kind of things, especially when there's full-on write-ups that do that thing very well. And I try not to rely on them too much, and I try to just reword stuff. But this thing has done my head in so much that I found it. Then it might be better for me to just try and read it out to you, and that way you can see what it says, instead of me really being unable to express what the hell it's complicated because it's a lot of cult stuff and it flies over my head because this is obviously an imaginary belief system belonging to an imaginary group of cultists that are following an imaginary cult. There we go. Anyway, if you liked this video and watched this for so long, thank you very much. I hope I get to see you on my other videos. I tend to like to talk about video games and gaming, and now I'm doing a little bit on tabletop. Vampire the Masquerade is my favorite tabletop, if you haven't noticed. I also sometimes do occult videos. Yeah, I know. And sometimes I even play retro games on streams, and then I upload stream footage over here. Isn't that cool? So your support's been appreciated, and thank you so much for everybody that has subscribed to my Patreon, because you help me make videos like these. So I hope that I'm gonna see you in the rest of this series at least, if not in my other videos, and toodaloo for now!